Hey folks, welcome to Visual Design. This here is a supplemental video to help you out with Project 3. I know you guys are working on your vector celebrity portraits right about now. Hopefully you have found your celebrity and got some good quality photos of that person and are now trying to figure out how to go ahead and proceed in Illustrator. I did go over some basics last time around. Today I'm going to do a little more of a specific demonstration. So if you remember, this here is Project 3, your vector celebrity portrait. It is supposed to be a portrait of somebody you consider a celebrity done in monochromatic colors, meaning all hues, all shades of one color, like this palette here. And as you can see here in the example, it's all done using vector shapes, either drawn freehand with the pencil or using the pen tool, or a collection of both. Now, I did mention in the last video that it definitely requires a lot of planning and organization, and today I'm going to demonstrate on Illustrator how to go about doing that. So let's take a look. Now, who did I pick for a celebrity? Well, right over here, I downloaded this great photo of this guy, the Incredible Hulk. He is a bit of a celebrity, and so I'm using this as my base photo. Remember that you want to find a good quality photo, so if you're searching in Google Images, make sure that you go to Settings and choose Large or Extra Large Photos, so this way you've got some good detail to work with. Now, similar to our pen tool practice with the ice cream cone and the Day of the Dead mask and the Mandela, we are going to place your chosen image of your celebrity into Illustrator and then begin sort of tracing from there. Now, this is obviously a little more complex, but I'll show you a real easy way to do it. Now, down to the specs for the assignment, you're working with a 12-inch by 12-inch document. So here I am in Illustrator, all set up with a 12-inch by 12-inch document. You can see here I've got a 12-inch by 12-inch square, ready to rock and roll. Now you notice I have my layers palette here, and the example that I have is already done, but I'm going to walk you through it step by step. Now the first thing you're going to do is place your image. Now to do that, make sure you know where you've saved your image. In my case, I have it in my downloads folder. Here is my picture of the Hulk. It's a nice high-res JPEG. So now that you've got your image saved away, you're going to go to File, you're going to go to Place, which is right here under File. Notice the keyboard command is Shift-Command-P or Shift-Control-P if you're on a PC. And this will take you to your file browser where you can find the image that you chose. So once you go ahead and place it in place, it will load up your cursor. See here I have my little Hulk floating on the cursor here. And then once I click and drop him off, I can position him. Now notice that the X in the middle of the photo is there. That basically means that the photo is placed, but it is not embedded into your Illustrator document. You want to make sure you embed it, because if you happen to move the original image file, you will lose the placement. So go over here to your Properties palette and make sure you hit the Embed button here under Quick Actions, and then you'll see the X goes away, and now your image is locked in place. Now the next thing of course you want to do is position it on your page however you want it. This is where you get to make some artistic decisions. How big do you want it? Make sure you're holding down your Shift key when you're resizing your photo, because nobody likes a squished Hulk, particularly the Hulk. So you want to be able to put this into place in the way that you would like it. All right, next. Now one thing you might want to do is if you double click on the layer that he's on, you can go to the layer options, and this allows you to not only name the layer, which by the way, be sure to name all of your layers, but you can dim the image to a percentage. So you see I have my photograph dimmed to 70%. It just makes it a little easier to trace it as if you're looking through tracing paper. You can also lock that layer and that'll keep it from moving so your Hulk doesn't go anywhere, or whoever your celebrity is. So we'll do that, and now I have the Hulk layer. So take a look over here at the layers, and we'll get to what we did after this in a second. So we've got the Hulk image in place, locked in place. I got them dimmed a little bit, so it's as if I'm looking through tracing paper. Now, obviously, the photo is extending beyond the edge of my artboard, but I'm only really concerning myself with this. And of course, you can take some artistic license with this too, which you'll see in a minute. Okay, the next thing to do is to establish your color palette. Now, the Hulk, of course, is green, so I'm going to go with shades of green. Now, this is an artistic interpretation. I am not trying to make this realistic looking. And again, it's a monochromatic assignment, so I only need one color from the color wheel, which I will then make various shades of by adding black or white to it, which I'll show you in a second. So of course the Hulk is primarily green, so this is an easy one. So I'm going to shut off the eyeball on the photo layer for a second, and I'm going to show you what I did for the color palette. So this here is the color palette. Now let me pick these up and move them over here. So the easiest way to do this is you want to establish your medium color, right? In my case, sort of your main green. And if I open up the color picker here, a good trick to do this is to choose the checkbox that says only web colors. This way it gives you a limited amount of colors. So if this medium green is my main green color for the Hulkster, then I can just simply choose colors above it and below it to get lighter and darker, and that'll give me my selection. So I simply just move through the color wheel here, pick the medium green that I want, which is this, and I simply checked off web safe colors. Now if it says unchecked, right, you have unlimited colors. That you can do that if you'd like, but it just makes it a little more complicated. So I kept this checked off, and now I know that that's my medium green. Once you've chosen that, you can then duplicate this square, and it doesn't have to be a square, I just make squares because they're easy. You can duplicate this square 3 times above it, 3 times below it, and that gives you 7 colors. Now, every time you open up each square into the color picker, you then pick the next green color down. So for example, you can see that I went with this one for the next color down, this one for the next color down, and this one for the next color down. So it gives me 3 darker shades of green below my medium. So there they are, there, and there. And then back to the medium, now you work upwards. So again, there's my medium green, then I went up to this green for the next lighter color, then up to this green for the next lighter color, and you're probably thinking, wait a minute, there's not a lighter green. Well, I fudged it a little bit by moving the color picker down so I can inject a little yellow into it, and then I chose this yellow over here so that I can have sort of a highlight color. So that gives me this one. So medium color, whatever color you choose, blue, green, red, purple, whatever, and then 3 lighter ones and 3 darker ones. Now, is this the only way to make a monochromatic color palette? Absolutely not. You can come up with your own system. This is just the way I like to do it because it makes life easier. To be honest, this replicates the way we used to do it with paint when we would work with actual paint. We would take a blob of paint, put it into 7 different like little paper cups, and then add 1 drop of white to the next cup, 2 drops of white to the third cup, and 4 drops of white to the last cup, and then mix them up, and they get progressively lighter. And then you go in the other direction. In the cups downwards, you would add 1 drop of black, 2 drops of black, 3 drops of black, and you would mix it up, and they would get progressively darker. It's just sort of basic color mixing, but we're doing it digitally. Okay, now once you have your color picker, you can simply move that off to the side. You have your color palette here, and again, give it its own layer, name it color palette. You can lock it in place so it doesn't go anywhere, and you can turn the eyeball off and on as you need it. You don't need it all the time. Okay, now the next thing you are going to do, of course, is to start tracing different parts of your picture. So here's Mr. Hulk back again. And you'll see that the layers here are named. So I have hair, face outline, shadows, highlights, his eyes, his mouth, his midtones, and of course I added some background graphics, which I added last, and a frame around the whole thing, which I added after that. Okay, so they're all nicely named and organized. Now, where you should start is really up to you. Generally what I do is I take the mid-tone color, which is my middle green here, and I just cover the entire area that I want the drawing to be in with that color. So you can see here I have a mid-tone layer. That's just a rectangle. It's just a green, flat green rectangle. And I'm saying that this is the area where I want to draw his face. Now you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, you can't see the photo anymore. Well, all I've got to do is simply reverse the fill and the stroke on this particular item so that I can just see in between it. So that gives me my mid-tone color, and I can, as I'm drawing the other colors, the other parts of him, I can always turn this back on and off by simply reversing the stroke and the fill and just double check it. Okay, now I'm going to simply lock this layer in place. Now you're going to do a lot of sort of locking and unlocking, showing and not showing of layers because it helps you sort of move around. So again, take your time, be organized, think before you do things, and it'll come out a lot better. Now, as far as where to put these in the layer palette, well, remember, as you move the layers up and down, they will be in different orders. So, for example, I did the hair, and that includes his eyebrows. So I'm going to zoom in a little here so you can see a little better, right? So that's the hair and the eyebrows, just sort of black shapes, and I use the pen tool for this. And you can check it by shutting off the eyeball on the photo, so you can sort of see what we're getting there, right? Hair and eyebrows. Okay. And then went ahead and did the face outline, which is sort of the dark shadows on the face. Gave that its own layer below the hair and the eyebrows. So now we're getting into that. And again, this is all done with the pen tool. You'll notice the angular pointy lines, right? You can tell this is done with the pen tool. Now you could use the pencil tool, whatever you're comfortable with. And then again, if I want to check my work without the photo, I can go back to that midtones rectangle and simply reverse the fill and the stroke and say, yeah, that's coming out pretty good. I'm getting there. Okay, reverse that back, lock it in place. Then I did a layer for the shadows, which are these here, right, which are like these shades of green. Now you'll see these shapes are a little more blobbish. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So those I did with the pencil tool. I didn't use the pen tool. I just kind of drew loosely with the pencil tool, right? And at any point you want to check, I can shut the hair off, I can shut the face outline off, and just look at those sort of shadows, right? Then I added highlights, right, which are the brighter green spots, those there. And again, you can check it by turning on that mid-tone rectangle again, which gives it sort of an overall color, and flip it. See? So just in a few steps, we're getting pretty good here. But of course, he has no eyes, he has no mouth, so we got to get onto that. Then we did the eyes, which are these here. And you'll notice I did those behind everything else, because if I shut these off, his eyes are just a couple of circles with some dark pupils and green highlights, right? But because they get covered by the rest of the elements, it doesn't really matter that they're just circles. So you've got to sort of think in terms of layers. Remember, Illustrator is almost like working with a bunch of little cut pieces of paper, almost as if I gave you a bunch of green construction paper and you cut out all these shapes and you just laid them on top of each other, right? Now the mouth works the same way. Did the mouth as a separate piece, and that's where that lighter yellowy green comes in. And again, if we shut these off, you can see the mouth by itself. So the mouth is just sort of the dark space for his mouth, the shapes for the teeth, and a little bit of green highlight on the lip. All right, so that takes care of the mouth. And then if I put the mouth back on, and then the eyes, he doesn't look like much of a Hulk like this, right? He looks a little silly. Then you start adding in the highlights, the shadows, the face outline, the hair. Now you're getting somewhere. Now that's really it for the Hulk, because now if I go back and turn on that mid-tone rectangle, right, do that again, and then reverse the color, boom, Insta-Hulk. So he's done. So that mid-tone color really eats up a lot of space, and really you're taking the time to put in things that are separate, like hair and eyebrows and eyeballs and mouth, and then everything else is just mid-tones, shadows and highlights for the rest of the color. Now, in a way, we could say that he's sort of done here, right? We could say, well, I guess I'm done with the Hulk. But when you have finished doing your main character, you can start adding some other things. Like I went ahead and put a frame around him, gave him a red frame because he's generally angry, and red's kind of a ragey color. And then I went ahead and made some background graphics like these here, which are just a bunch of rectangles on a black background. And now we've got instant celebrity portrait. So to go over it again, right? We started out by placing our image as our trace, locking it down in place, right? We decided to establish a color palette, right? Mid-tone green through light greens, mid-tone green through dark greens, and we use those to start sampling our colors. Now remember, of course, you can use the eyedropper tool, which is this guy here, to go ahead and choose the colors from your color picker and then apply them to the different shapes that you are using, right? So that's pretty great. And then we establish a mid-tone color, right? Once we've got that established, we can shut it off and start working with things like creating his hair and his face outlines and some shadows and some highlights and giving him some eyeballs so we can see who he's mad at, giving him his mouth so we can say his signature tagline, Hulk Smash, drop those midtones back in, and then you can add some graphics like a frame and a background. And then once you're all done, of course, shut off the photo in the background so that you just get to see your artwork. And then we can back it up here a little bit and get a good look at it. So there you go. I hope that helps. Again, layers are crazy super important. Keep them organized, name them. Remember, of course, under each section is a whole bunch of sub layers, all those little tiny shapes that you drew. Take your time with it. You know, individually, the shapes might not look like anything. So for example, if I just take a look at the highlights, right? And just do this. I mean, what is that? It's just a collection of little blob shapes, right? But I'm just using those based on what I see in the photograph. And you know, I'm not getting all the highlights. Clearly I missed this highlight and this highlight and this highlight. But remember, it's an artistic interpretation. So just do your best. Just think, well, in fact, I could have probably come up with a better highlight for the nose, but I did this pretty quickly. And so, same thing with the mouth. I'm not trying to make the mouth a realistic interpretation of this. I'm doing a graphic representation of kind of everything. Same thing with the eyes, right? And you can see how they match up with what's in the photo, right? So we're not trying to replicate this photorealistically. We're just trying to be inspired by what is in the photo. So you make your choices. You decide what to trace and what not to trace. You know, what to make it a flat color, like his hair and his eyebrows are just a flat black. I didn't put in any of the highlights in the hair. I decided a flat color was a better way to go. And then just stay organized, put everything together, and in the end, you end up with a really nice vector portrait of your celebrity. Okay, now, go draw or Hulk smash. I talk to you later. If you need anything, give me an email. You know where I'm at. I hope you all are doing good.